Last week, my family and I stepped off that ledge. Our journey really started almost 8 weeks ago. I was diagnosed 2 years ago with the BRCA2 gene and put it off for a while. Did a surrogacy for my friend and her husband. Ended up being in the hospital for 2 months and gave birth to two healthy twin boys. During that time, we did well. My husband had a job and I was bringing in money, and we didn't live high on the hog, but we lived well. Then started getting serious about dealing with the BRCA2 gene, and my OBGYN did the new robotic surgery to do the hysterectomy, oophorectomy, and he recommended another doctor for my double mastectomy that we were planning on doing. All of this time, we were praying and asking God to guide us where we should go, who we should go see, what we should do. But as so many other people do, it was kind of half-hearted. We got too busy, too sidetracked by everything else, and God kind of got put on the shelf. It was my daughter's graduation weekend, and we had everybody here, and we were trying to plan for that and plan for the following Tuesday was my surgery, my first surgery. So we got through the graduation weekend, and Tuesday morning came. Met my doctor. We had decided on a nipple areola sparing surgery. And the Thursday before the graduation, he wasn't sure that was going to work. So my last directive to him was, when you're in the surgery, do what you think is best. I'm from a medical background. I realize that people wake up with having different outcomes than they expected. And so went into surgery. Meanwhile, my husband's waiting. The first doctor, which was the oncologist, said the surgery would only take 2.5 hours. She ended up being in there for 4.5 hours. This whole time, nobody came out at the hospital and informed my husband of what was going on, why things were taking so long. Then she came out at 4.5 hours, according to my husband, and said that everything had went well. Nothing else. That's all she said. Everything went well. He tried to ask her why it took so long, and she avoided the question. When she was done, my plastic surgeon that was going to do the dip flap took over. He did the dip flap, which is basically where they take your gut skin and the tissues and the fat and muscle areas, and they put it up into the breast area where they remove all of the tissue to make it look more natural. At 7, I think my husband said 7 hours, 45 minutes, he came out and talked to my husband and said, these are what the numbers are saying. You know, we like to see this, but, you know, here's where they're at. He never said, not once, this isn't going to work. I can't make this be a good outcome for her. I think that we need to do this. He just said, here's the numbers, here's what we like to see, but here's the numbers. The numbers were within 1 or 2 digits of what they like to see. So my husband, not knowing that that was not good, he said, I, I don't know what to say here. I want her to have an outcome of what she was expecting. So he went back in, and he was rushed because the first doctor had taken so long, and I had been on the table for 8 hours. So I get out, and I'm in recovery, and I remember a little bit of when I had started coming out of anesthesia. I was in a lot of pain, and the hospital, the staff in the nursing department was really rough. I mean, I just remember they were just rough. And was in my room, and it was that night, and the doctor came in and he looked, and he just like, yeah, they're not gonna survive. So I'm laying there, I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do about that? He goes, well, let's just give it a little bit longer. So the next day he came in and looked at it and said, yeah, they're not gonna survive. And all while this is going on, the machine that the hospital has that's supposed to monitor what the blood flow and what all of the progress in the tissue and stuff like that is doing, it broke. I had nurses coming in and hitting it. I had a CNA coming in, and she was giggling and laughing because it wouldn't work, and they were so nonchalant about the fact that this machine wouldn't work. And the only reason that I was at this hospital was for this machine. I'm laying there freaked out, and nobody's taking it seriously. Not one person. I'm laying in my bed, and I see other things like the housekeeping lady. She comes in and she wipes my toilet down with the same rag, and then she wipes my sink down. I wouldn't even use my sink. I used the wet wipes to wash my hands because I was like, I'm not going to use a sink that I just peed in. Basically, is how it felt to me. I figured that they would take me in immediately for surgery to reduce the amount of tissue that was dying. But they didn't. I didn't go in until Friday morning. And Friday morning, I was given a different surgeon. My surgeon had gone to his other clinic and left me with his associate, whom I'd never met. I don't know, part of me thought that I would be okay. Part of me thought that I would come out fine. And I came out of surgery, and I was groggy, obviously. And I said, well, things didn't go perfectly, but they'll be okay. So Friday night, they looked at my dressings, and I got to see myself for the first time. Most people that have the dip flap are uniform. They look the same on both sides. On one side, I have a huge patch that goes like this up and over. On the other side, I have this little jagged, ragged section that goes up, and it's had a wound in it for 2 months now. My first post-op with my doctor, he couldn't even look at me. He kept saying, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. I'm sorry, we messed up. We didn't make the right choice. I'm sorry. Dr. Nagels was the other doctor. I'm sorry that he pulled the skin so tight we're not sure if the tissue's going to survive. The second doctor did so much damage. that it's not even funny, and my first doctor left and let him. They even screwed up my belly button, and they screwed up my tummy tuck area. I look like a jack-o'-lantern on my tummy. And when our first post-op meeting happened, all he could say was, when I started to cry, all he could say was, you need to go get psychiatric help. I said, no, I need to be able to cry, and I need to be able to mourn, because you just allowed and were part of cutting me to shreds and leaving me in ruin, basically. So we got over that hump. We started the healing process. My mom was able to come out and stay with me for the week because my husband had a really good job and he needed to get back down there. His job was 5.5 hours away, but we were grateful for it because he made such a good wage and he was promised a lot of work. So we were healing. My daughter went to the other doctor's appointments with me, and I finally went and got a second opinion, and all the second opinion doctor could say was, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I can't even find a lawyer that'll sit down and listen to me. It's almost like most of the men lawyers are like, oh, it's just boobs, it doesn't matter. I had a lawyer tell me that it wasn't financially responsible for their practice to take it on. I've had people tell me that I have a court case. I have a lawsuit against the doctor for malpractice. I have a lawsuit against the hospital for their machine breaking down. But I can't get anybody to represent me. This whole time I'm wondering, where is God? Where is God? Where is God? And then another bombshell. 2 weeks after my surgery, we take my daughter to college, and that's hard for anybody. But we love her, and we want her to go to a good place. So that, as a parent, and as most parents know, when you take your kid to college, and they're not going to college right down the street, it's really hard. So we took her back to where she goes to college now, and we started looking around, and we were just like, we just love this place. We wish God would help us figure out a way to get here, but my husband had a decent job, and it just didn't seem responsible to pick up and move. So we kind of prayed about what God's will was. Well, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, my husband went down for what was his last week. We didn't know. He was supposed to have a lot of work. They had tons of work that they were talking to him about it. And he said that they liked him. They said that they were happy with him. And so we didn't know what we were going to do. I didn't have a job. He now has no job. So we prayed. We had a little bit of money left in the bank that we had been saving, and we prayed. Bills came up, and the money kept going down and kept going down and kept going down, but we kept praying. It got to the point where we didn't have enough money to stay in the place that we were staying, but we didn't have enough money to do anything else. So we scraped together what we could, and we started to pray, Lord, what are we going to do? My husband was on YouTube one night and saw this wonderful video, and it's a man talking about how we declare God's mercy, and we declare His promises that He puts in the Bible. We declare His goodness.